Here once again, we bring you greetings from the Union Street Church of Christ in Tunica, Mississippi, and churches of Christ throughout this world. We want to just take but for a moment to come within your homes and to share with you God's eternal word. If you have any questions concerning the things that we say, please feel free to ask questions. Write them down within the page, and we will get to you. We believe that the Bible is right. That is our guide from earth to glory. That one day we will be judged by these same principles that God has given us by his command, according to his word. Why don't you take the time out to just listen but for this moment? I want to use for a subject here at this time, you blind guides. So many times we have leaders who are affiliated in some group or with some church. They're affiliated with something. And all men have time now is to just seem to just sit down and argue in their great discussions about God and his word. 2 Timothy 3:16. The Bible tells us all scriptures are given by the inspiration of God, is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction and instruction in righteousness, that the man of God may be perfect and thoroughly furnished throughout every good work. We do believe that the Bible is right. I want for you, to those of you who sit in your homes, I want you to turn to the book of St. Matthew's, the 23rd chapter, as we use for this great subject, you blind guides. When it comes to the gospel of Jesus, our priorities must be in order, because the Bible is right. We sit down and we choose to argue and complain about so many things, all of the bickering and the fussing and the arguing that's going on throughout these different so-called churches about so many things. And some of the things that we're arguing about are things that make no sense at all. When Jesus was talking to these scribes and Pharisees, sometimes the elders was there. Jesus gave his harshest warning, his greatest woes concerning them. He called them hypocrites so many times because of their attitudes and how they were in their teachings and their principles of doctrines. But so many times when it comes to church folk, yes, I did say church folk, and someone has asked the question, what are church folk? They are the so-called leaders who attend in the assembly of worship. They're the people who have influence, people that are called our guides, our counselors. These people can persuade us that what they're saying is indeed the truth. Sometimes the argument comes up about a gymnasium that is in the church building, as it is said. They're arguing about a kitchen that is in the church building. Is it right or is it wrong? I want you to hear me when I say this. So many times, if there was ever a place that a gymnasium ought to be, then that gymnasium ought to be within the Lord's house. I cannot think of a better place that you could put one. Think of the influence, think of the impact that it would have. It would have great influence upon our young people. It would have influence upon our older peoples who love to come together and to play the game of basketball, if the church could afford it. These gymnasiums are not in all facilities of worship, but they're in some. The kind of thing that go on within the community will not be going on in that place, because there will be guidance. Think of those who will be drawn to come into that place, and they find themselves in that great different environment, that they learn how to even talk better. They learn how to get along better. There's nothing wrong with the gymnasium at a church building. That's the church building. That's the place where the church comes together for worship. The building is not the church. You talk about people coming together and coming together for these different kinds of purpose and these different kinds of reasons. When you read 1 Corinthians, the 3rd chapter, you find Paul when he talks about building upon this foundation. For no other foundation, he said, can any man build. But if any man build upon this foundation, whether he use wood, hay, or stubble, gold, silver, or precious stone, every man's work is going to be tried by the fire. For the fire shall try every man's work of what sort it is. And if any man's work be burned, he shall suffer loss. Yet he himself shall be saved, yet through the fires. So God, he tells us that we can build upon this foundation that's already laid. But if we're going to do anything, let it be something positive. Let it be something of influence. When it comes to the church having a kitchen in the building of the place where the church meets, Aquila and Priscilla, they were fellow helpers of Paul. When you read Romans chapter 16 and you begin at verses 3 through 5, Paul said, greet Priscilla and Aquila, my fellow helpers in the Lord, with the church that is in their home. And I'm sure that in their home, they had a kitchen. So many things that we argue and complain about that makes no sense at all. By the time Jesus began talking to these scribes and Pharisees, he told them in St. Matthew 23 and 24, he said, you blind guides, you strain at a gnat and you swallow a camel. This is what we're sitting around doing. We're arguing about things that makes no sense at all. And we're going to turn around and swallow a whole camel, lump, hump, and all, if we don't stop. Let us refer to what God has said in his word. Let us take God at his word. Let us quit arguing about the small things and let us glorify him. If you're not a Christian, you need to be. You say, what must I do to be saved? Hear the gospel of Jesus, Romans 10:17. Believe the gospel of Christ, Hebrews 11:6. Repent of your sin, Luke 13:3 and 5. Confess with your mouth that you believe that Jesus Christ is God's Son, Matthew 10:32 and 33. Why don't you be baptized in water that your sins is washed away? Acts 2:38, that God will forgive you of your sin. Why don't you continue in this grace? John 8:31-32. Jesus said to those Jews that believed on him, if you continue in my word, then are you my disciples indeed. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.